Okay, this is my tutorial on how to make kinograms for a large group fairly efficiently using two pieces of software. So the first piece of software I'm using is Kinovea. Unfortunately, it's only available on PCs. It doesn't work on Macs. So if you have a Mac, I'm sorry, this tutorial is not going to work for you. Um, but we'll jump right in. So I have a video loaded up. First thing is just setup. Anytime you're doing these, you want to make sure you have a stable camera so you can see the shadow here. I have this camera on a tripod, so there's no movement. It's in the same exact spot for every athlete that rolls through. Next is you have a clear zone that you're measuring. Um, and what you want to try to do is use frames that are as close to the center as possible, especially if you're using, so this is a DJI. It's a wide angle lens, so you can see there's quite a bit of distortion kind of as you get to the edges of the frame here. And it's also going to be important for cropping. When we do the automatic cropping later, you want a pretty small consistent size that you can crop to. So you don't want you don't want to start anybody way off in the beginning of the zone, and you don't want them ending way over in this zone. So with that, you might have to start some people on different frames. So like normally, you might always start the first cropping on maybe their touchdown phase. Well, if their touchdown is way over here, again, you want to avoid that. But then maybe if their touchdown ends, the first clear middle portion of the frame touchdown is in here, then the last one might be way off over here. So it's going to kind of depend on each athlete where their contacts are through the zone. But you might want to consider starting some of the kinograms maybe on a quote unquote off frame. So maybe like an MVP or something. So let's just do that on this kid, just so you can see what I'm talking about here. So um, first thing I'm going to do, obviously find the frame that you want to start with. So I'm going to reverse this video a little bit. And my computer is really slow, so if you have a good graphics or some higher end computer, this software is going to run a little bit faster. It's a little glitchy on mine. But so we've got the first frame here, MVP. So what I'm going to do, this button right here, add a key image, and that's going to save kind of a screenshot of this at that time point. So next one, I'm going to skip the strike phase. I'm just going to go with touchdown. And again, you can zoom in as well, so you can make sure you're clear on these frames. Even when you're zoomed in though, when you add these key images down here, it doesn't save the zoomed in image. Unfortunately, that would be really helpful. But you can zoom in to make sure you're getting the right frames. So touchdown on the right, save. I'm going to go mid stance and toe off. MVP, other side. Touchdown. Mid stance. And back to toe off. So it should have 8 images. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to File, Export Images, Key Images, find the folder you want to save them in, and the naming system that Kinovea uses, so whatever you type in, I always use the athlete's name, and then it's going to add the time code as well to the end of that name. So save, it's going to export. I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so it's exported those images. So you can go to the file just to show you. So here they are. Again, it doesn't do the zoomed in frame, it does the whole frame. So you can scroll through those. We've got them all there. Okay. So we're going to go back. What we're going to do is we're going to delete those. And we're going to roll through until we have the next athlete coming through the frame. All right, so next athlete, we're going to do the same process. So I'm going to go ahead and start with touchdown on this one because he's fairly close to those, kind of that middle 5 meters of the frame. Key image. Toe off. MVP. Touchdown. Mid stance. Toe off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. MVP. Should be 8. So double check. We've got touchdown, mid stance, toe off, MVP, touchdown, mid stance, toe off, MVP. All right, same thing. File, export, key images. Okay, so those just exported and double check. Here we go. There's the new ones. All right. So you're going to want to create a new folder called, I just name it cropped. That keeps it simple because we're going to go through and crop all these images down automatically with the next piece of software. So just add a new folder, new, again, I name it cropped, whatever you want. Then we're going to use the next piece of software. So this is called IrFanView. Again, I don't know if this works on Mac or not, but it works on PC. So we're going to go open. We're going to find the photos that we have. We're gonna open. If you just are on that folder and hit open, you can click the first one, and you should be able to hit next. I don't know why this extension pops up, but it's going to give you all the images you have. So what I talked about earlier in Kinovea was really important about trying to keep everybody within the same kind of middle 5 meters zone. And that's important because now when we crop, we want to make sure that because it's going to automatically crop every image in the same position, you want to make sure that you don't have anybody cut out. So if you have one person, like I said, that was way over here that you exported the keyframe, well, now you have to make your crop that much bigger to make sure that that one person was in doesn't get cropped out. So to be safe, like I said, most of my people were, I think, maybe had a back foot somewhere between this post in the background and this timing cone. I don't think I had anyone that was that far back, and I think for the most part, to be safe, somewhere probably between this kind of pole in the background and this light post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just draw my crop zone about right there. And again, you might want to check. You might want to go through some of your images, open them up, and make sure that where you're drawing, you don't have anybody pass to get a good idea. But I'm going to go with that. I feel pretty confident I'm going to have everybody in that zone. So then I'm going to go to File, Batch Conversion / Rename. So you want to click on Batch Conversion, Rename Results Files. And then this is where you got to make sure you hit the right thing. So you're going to use Advanced Options. And you want to make sure Crop is checked. And then you're going to hit Get Current Selection. So what that's going to do is that's going to remember the X and Y position that you drew that rectangle over and the size of it, and it's going to apply that to all the pictures. So now I'm going to select all the pictures, shift click, and hit add. On the naming pattern, so you can hit options here. I like to do a number sign and an N that keeps the old file name, and then a number sign after is going to add another digit, 1 digit and a number after the fact. So it's going to basically, it would name, like this one here is going to end up being Nate 1.893, and then probably 2. or 1. It's going to add another number, another digit. So, okay on that. Then your output folder. So this is where we made that cropped folder earlier. So I want to put all of the output, all of the cropped photos in this folder here. And then I'm going to hit start batch. It's going to go through all those pretty quickly. It's already done, 16 photos. Like I said, I did about 115, 112, 115 the other day. Maybe took 30 seconds. So I'm going to hit exit. Can go back to my folder, and now there's all of my cropped images. So I've taken out as much additional space as I can and can roll through them. Did I crop any legs out? It doesn't look like I did. So did I have 8 for each? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. So I've got all my athletes. Okay. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to go back to the photo editor. We're going to go to File, Thumbnails. Then you're going to want to find that folder you just saved all the cropped images to. So cropped. And it's going to have them all there. So we're going to select all of them. And then right click on the first one. And hit Create Contact Sheet from Selected Files. Okay, this is where there's a lot of options you can mess around with. It's totally up to you how you want your format sheet to be. This is where basically the part where it's going to save your photos above and below each other, kind of in a line, just like what your Kinogram output should look like. So there's two ways. You can go just normal letter, standard size. Probably want to go landscape. And then it depends, again, up to you how many columns and rows, how many basically athletes you want per sheet. So I did 8 frames, so that's going to be basically for one person, you're going to have 4 columns and 2 rows for one person. Then you can, how much space you want between the images. So I don't want any space horizontally between the images. I want them basically squeezed right up against each other. This box gets a little weird based on the size of your paper. The vertical and pixel, it doesn't really work. I don't think. Then you can pick the margins of how much white space you want around the edges of the sheet. So to make sure that you get this right and you have the output that you want, what you want to do is hit Create First Page Only. So I'm going to hit Create, and it's going to give me my sample. So what it did was it did one athlete, but it put them pretty far apart. And it also named them. So I don't like that. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to thumbnails again. We're going to recreate contact. Okay, let's change some settings. So one thing I always uncheck, forgot to do it, write file info. So that's going to get rid of those names that you had in between. Let's just do, you want to do 4 rows. So this is going to put 2 athletes. So I'm going to show you that. So create. Now I've got the first athlete, these first 2 rows, second athlete, these bottom 2 rows. But it would be nice to get rid of this space in between. So these, if I could get each athlete's photos kind of right up against each other. So again, this is where it takes, again, there's a lot of customized options. It depends on how you want that final result to come out. You can add some extra margins. So let's go back to just 1 athlete per sheet. So I'm going to change that to 2 rows. And let's go 200 pixels as my vertical margin. So that puts them a lot closer together. So I could keep playing around with that. Maybe I go to, whoops. Maybe I go to 250. Okay, now we're talking. Now we're together. That's a lot better. So I could go ahead if I wanted all of them to look like that on a page, and basically what I would do then, so I've got those settings that I like, and I would go ahead and hit save all pages as files. Again, select your folder, select the file name, hit create, and it's going to do it for all those photos I had selected. I'm not a big fan of how it created this because of all of this white space around here. So this is where you got to do a little math. So we're going to cancel this for a second. We're going to just open this image, and we're going to note the size down here. So 1601 by 510, that's in pixels. So what we're going to do, let's open up a calculator. So we want to do 4 columns. So that's going to be 1601 times 4. So 6,404 pixels across. Okay, and then it's 510 pixels tall. Let me write this down. 6,404 wide. And then we have 510 times, it's only going to be 2 rows. So that's the height here. And we're only going to do 2 rows as our height. So times 2, 1,020 tall. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my contact thumbnails. I don't know why it doesn't want to open on the first click. Make sure I select all my images again. Create contact sheet from selected files. This is where I'm going to change my page dimensions. So I'm going to click pixels. And now I'm going to customize the total sheet. So the width we just calculated was 6,404, and the height was 1,202. Or was it 20? 1,020. Okay. So what we did is instead of that, these images now going on a full-size sheet, the size of the sheet that it's going to output is now pretty much the exact size of these images. So I'm going to make sure that I don't really have any margins. And actually what I would do is make this slightly bigger. So you might make this, let's just go to 500, let's call it. And let's make this 1100. So we have a little extra border around. So I still don't want any spacing between the images. So I'm going to leave those at 0, those at 0. And my margins now, let's say 50. You have enough room because we made the sheet big enough. There's at least 50 pixels on the side that we can do. And you can do some math if you want it to make sure it's super even, etc. But let's just see what that outputs. Boom. So that's going to be our new sheet. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go back, create contact sheet again, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save all pages as files. Make sure I go to where I want them saved. So I'm going to find that same folder and my videos. And create. So again, it's going to take a little bit longer if you have a bunch, but I just made those 2. Let's go check. Here they are. Now you can put these in Word, you can put them in a PowerPoint, wherever you want to put them to be able to print them clearly, or just viewing them on a screen. But there it is. once you have the hang of it, it goes pretty quick. Again, it's still time consuming. You've got a lot of athletes, but in terms of not having to crop down every file, not having to open up Microsoft Word and try to place them, in a setting like this, this really automates a lot of that process. I am going to show you one more thing. So if you would like them to be zoomed in more, again, because we had to be sure that we got everybody in the frame automatically with that automatic crop, we had to go a little bigger than what you'd probably like. So like if you use the Altus one, they crop it down to a square to where the person is in the middle of the frame. I'm going to show you how to do that next. It's a little bit more time consuming, but it can be done. So let's go to that. Okay, so we're back in Kinovea. Again, this way is going to be a little bit more time consuming, but it does give you a better option if you don't want to do that crop that's a big, super long rectangle, and you want to do something that's more zoomed in, more of a square shape, with the athlete really centered in every frame. So um, this one, because we're zooming in, it's not as big of a deal that you try to get the athlete in this middle frame because we're gonna kind of crop individually a little bit. So the way to get Kinovea to basically export an image, unfortunately you can't. Like I said, if you zoom in on the image and hit the keyframe, it saves the whole screen. Unfortunately, it doesn't save that zoomed in part. But there is kind of a workaround to that. So we're gonna start. Um, Same thing. Find your key images. What we're gonna do though before we save it is we're going to hit this magnifier tool. This is the important part too, though. Here is you want to set a nice consistent size on the first one. So find a rectangle, a size that you think works pretty well with enough space around the athlete, because you're going to basically just reuse this rectangle here. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Now what I want to do is hit save image down here. So that's going to save the image there. I've created a new folder for the Kinovea Zoom. And I'm going to want to just save this, again, athlete's name, and I would go 1. This is the extra time consuming part, is you have to save every individual image. Save. Okay, so saved it. I'm going to go to his mid stance. Toe off. So all I need to do, he's kind of getting out of the zoom frame. Just move this over, click and drag, recenter, save. And you could probably actually, even to save time from renaming them, um, is let this name them for you. I think it's going to probably count up based on what files are already here. But you want them in order. That's the important part. So actually you can see I did Nate 1 with no space and then Nate 2 with a space. Make sure you're consistent with how you name them, because later on in the process, again, when you add things into that image editor, it's going to do it based on the name and the order, and you don't want your Kinogram to have frames out of order so that when they're stacked, you don't have, MVP on the right on the top image and a touchdown on the left because of the naming. So how you name these is really important. So I'm going to go back to no space, and then I'll correct this one a little bit later. Again, when it gets out of frame, just drag it over, but don't change the size. Touchdown. MVP. Toe off again. Slide back over, recenter. And last one, MVP. Okay, so I need to do, so it actually worked out. It still put it in order, even with that space. But we'll change it just to be safe. Let's get rid of it. Okay, so I'm just gonna do one athlete on this one to save some time. So we're gonna go back again to our image editor. Let's open up that new file. So I'm going to go to the first one, open. So now you can see it's saved each of these images from Kinovea with this zoomed in cropped version up in the top left. So now it makes it really easy when we go to our automatic cropping. We're going to draw over that magnified part of the image back to our batch conversion rename. Make sure batch conversion rename results. Again, I've already created another folder in here called cropped again. So you want to make sure, because otherwise it's going to rename these and you're going to have the original images mix in with the cropped images and it's going to be harder to sort them out later. So make sure you already have another folder created cropped. You're going to use advanced options. Make sure it's set to crop, and then again, get current selection. So that sets the X and Y position, the height and the width. Select all your photos, add to be processed. Again, your name pattern, you can change that however you want. And we're going to start batch. Boom. So it's done. So let's check on them. Okay, now though you can see it cropped them all to that nice zoomed in athlete centered frame. So now I got to create my contact sheet. So I go to thumbnails. I'm going to find that new folder. There they are. Again, there's a couple different ways you can set up that contact sheet. So I'm going to select all my photos. I still have the width and height of the sheet set to what the size of those pictures was previously. So again, you can change this if we just go standard letter size. This is still going to be the same. I want 4 columns for the 4 different positions on each leg. 2 rows. I want only one athlete per sheet. And let's just see what that creates there. Oh, I do not want to replace. So that's not bad. Because it's zoomed in, that's a normal size sheet. It makes it pretty big. We can probably play around with the vertical margin a little bit and get these a little bit closer together. So let's just see. Let's change this to 100. And we need to change where this is going. Again, make sure it's on. I only want to create first page only to preview it. So that's why last time it tried to save it. So create first page only just kind of works as a preview. So that's a little better. So I could keep playing around with those margins and make them bigger to where this squeezes in. This is a pretty zoomed out image again. So if I go to what that created, oh, it didn't create it. I didn't actually save it. So let's do that again and save. Let's go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger, say 120. So pretty close together. That should have saved it. And there we go. So that's almost a full page sheet. So if I printed this out, that's going to be pretty big. It's a much bigger image than when I did all the rectangles, much more zoomed in. So pretty good there. Again, if you wanted to make sure it filled the page, you would go back. We would see what size one of these pictures is. So we open. We're just going to select one of the images. Again, 977 by 1026. So we're going to break out our calculator again. 977 times, that's the width, times 4, 3,908. The height, 1026, only 2 rows. Okay, so now I can go, if I want, and just create a sheet that's exactly that size. So again, I like to go a little bit bigger so there's some white space around it. So let's go, it was 3908. Let's go to 39, let's say 50, and height was 2052. Let's go to 2090. So now it's set to, the sheet is going to be basically the size of those images. I need to make sure I squeeze. I don't have enough room to put those big of margins anymore. Let's create first page only. Create. So now the whole sheet pretty much doesn't have any margins. It's all nice squeezed together. So if you printed this, um, you're going to have kind of this with a lot of white space. Um, now compared to, let's go back and save it. So that's a pretty good output. Save. We're going to override it. Now we have basically the whole sheet with no margins. So take that. Again, that takes a little longer because you have to save every picture individually in Kinovea instead of just being able to hit export and export all 8 images at once. So that's where the extra time constraint comes through. Everything else is the same, but I think it gives you a much better output result from that compared to when we just did the bigger rectangle and we got something more like that. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful.